Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Health Hangouts with Amanda. This is a video series that we were posting every day for 30 or 35 days while everyone was quarantined in their homes. When phase 2 in British Columbia opened, we decided not to post videos daily, but we are still going to continue the video series on a casual basis. And so today I have Marion with us, who she was connected to me through a mutual friend of ours. So welcome, Marion. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Amanda. Thanks for asking me.
Well, for sure. This is a voluntary thing. So Marion is here on her own time, and I'm really grateful for that and excited for the new contact and what we might talk about today, because I don't really know. Like these are just hangouts, and you never know where the conversation is going to go. So for anybody who does not know about this video series, the intention here is to spread strength, hope, and love for people struggling during the pandemic. And we've all, well, I don't want to say all of us, but I imagine like a lot of people have struggled in various ways. And so now with phase 2 in full swing, there's 4 phases in BC, and I know every country is kind of doing something different. Every province in Canada is doing something a little bit different. But yeah, we just want to do our best to tell people out there that you're not alone in this. I know that we've heard that a lot. It can be seen as cliche, but you don't have to be, right? And so there's just some opportunity here to gain some ideas of what you can be doing to support yourself and your family, your community. And that's what we're all about. So if there is anybody out there who is interested to join the conversation and have an interview with me, just email us and let us know, and then we'll set it up. So Marion, I mean, we've just met, but I'm really excited to connect with you because I love the people that sent you over my way, and so it's really nice to just make that cross connection. I'd love for you to introduce yourself, and then of course the fundamental question here is, how have you been affected personally and professionally by the pandemic?
Well, I work full-time and I work in a quasi-government agency. I'm married. I have grown children, so they don't live with me. They actually live across the pond, I'll call it. And we have a acreage here that we live on. We don't have anything fancy. That sounds fancy, but it's not. We have a house that suits the 2 of us perfectly. We have 2 cats, or we had 2 cats. We have a big garden. And I'll leave it at that. Where can I take it from here? I would love for everybody to...
I want to say that it's cool to see you in your garden. Like, it's a beautiful day out, and it's what a great, like, I want to almost say like it's a gift to be able to, you know, we're in this pandemic, but it's summer is coming and so many people are gardening, and I myself have done some gardening with my partner, and I mean, like, we're talking like I don't know how to explain it, not really gardening, but sort of. Like, we have a very small non-acreage, like grassy
Any
backyard.
gardening's good gardening, right? Yeah. Watching something grow.
Flowers. Yeah. We're watching things grow, and we're really excited every time like a flower opens, because I'm not a green thumb. But it's neat to see, like we said before I hit record, like you showing up in your garden and your humanness, and I just love that. Yeah. It's so beautiful.
In my happy place. This is my happy place. So
yeah. Well,
you know,
well, let's start with let's start professionally. You know, how has this been? Like, you work full time, working for what you said, like a quasi-government agency. It's I mean, I imagine that you were 9 to 5 in the office every, you know, Monday to Friday, and then boom, this happens. So now that was back in March, I think, when all the businesses started to close, and so now we're almost into June. And are you still working at home? Are you planning on going back? What's it been like working online? Like, just tell us all about that.
So many things. Well, I just remember the day that we all got told it was time to pack up your laptop and go home. So that was a bit of a shock. I wasn't even in that much of a hurry. We sort of suspected that was what was going to happen. Most of the people who work in our office ended up working from home. They still had to have a small contingency of staff, which they we've got multiple buildings, so they sent everyone to different buildings, social distancing, you know, we're very, very on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nobody had gone through this before, so nobody really knew what to do. However, we had really good leadership, and it was great. But I have to say, I wanted to work from home one day a week, but when I had to work from home, it was a completely different story. Having to work from home, being forced to not go anywhere, it was really hard. I would say for about the first month, I would wake up most mornings just thinking, this is Groundhog Day. Like, what's going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, the uncertainty of everything that was going on, you know, and our morning routine became watching Justin, you know, hitting the record button and watching to see
Yep.
what he had to say. The Prime Minister uh, made me feel very grateful to be Canadian. I
Mm-hmm.
have been surprised, actually, by the government. You know, it's not always good and it's not always bad, but I found that it was comforting somehow. And I've talked to many people, and they were doing exactly the same thing. And we all kind of laughed at each other and said, "Yeah, well, you know, who'd have thought, right? That's our direction we would go in." And yeah, waking up every morning and not having your regular routine, not seeing the faces of people that you were used to seeing, it felt really hard. It was not easy to do. You know, you of course put on your happy face when you wake up in the morning, and you
Mm-hmm.
put on your business face, and you would, you know, whether you felt like going to work or not at the office, you always put on your happy face, and you went and did your thing. And I really love the place that I work, and I'm very happy there. So being at home was hard. That was really, really hard. Going from 0 to 60, and you know, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it was really quick. Everything happened very quickly. I'm still working from home now. They're doing a sort of phased back into the office, but depending on what happens with the pandemic, sort of depends on how quickly that will be. How do they social distance with people in desks? It has to be really organized, and all that kind of stuff. So that was probably the first month of how I felt about it. Now we're into second month, 2.5 months later. I'm not sure I
Mm-hmm.
want to go back to the office. It's been
And actually, if I can just say, like, that's what I'm sensing might happen is people, it's like, this is a very simple example, but I use this a lot in counseling. It's like transitioning from white bread to brown bread, or, you know, it's like we really like eating white bread and we're used to that. And that's, you know, and then the doctor says, you know, maybe you want to, I don't know, consider
well, it
eating flax
is
bread or whatever. And then you have it
totally.
and you don't like
Yeah.
it, and then you have it more and more, and then you get used to it, and then you try and go back to white bread and you don't like it anymore. So now we're working from home, we've adapted, we're used to it, and then it's
Yes.
like, well, what's the value of me having to drive for 45 minutes to get to the office, and when I can just do this all from home? Even though it might be lonely and there's downsides, but I'm hearing that from a lot of people, like, now I didn't realize that I could do my job so well from home. I want to
Exactly.
go back.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I know. Look at Zoom. It's become quite a large part of our life now. I have a girlfriend who's a nurse, a frontline worker, and when on her days off, we have a Zoom party, and that's been, don't know how we got started on it, but we did. And it's been a lifesaver because we've been sharing how we feel about at
Mm-hmm.
different points. Because I know at one point I woke up one morning and I just felt gloomy. Like I just didn't feel like myself. I thought, if this is going to go on forever, it was really tough. And then when you
Mm-hmm.
have some, I think what I missed the most, if there was any one thing, it was that something to look forward to, the vacation, the going visiting with
Mm-hmm.
girlfriends, you know, socializing with people other than, you know, we have this big greenhouse, so we can outdoor socialize and do social distancing, you know, and be out of the rain or whatever. But
Right.
it's it felt really awkward the first time, and then the second time it felt not so awkward again. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, adapting to the different things, they don't seem so abnormal anymore. They seem quasi-normal. I can't really say it feels normal, but I want to
Mhm.
hug people. That's my
I
big
know, me
thing.
too.
I want to hug people. I miss that part of the universe. You know, your friends come
Yeah.
over and you give them a big hug, and uh, now we're doing virtual hugs.
Isn't it so
Matisted.
weird? Like
Yeah, it
when
is.
your friend comes over and you're like in the garden and like I've experienced this and I look at them and I say, "Wow, I've really missed you." And then we just stand there. I
Yeah,
like
exactly.
really
Like
want to
it's
hug you. And I have
yeah,
this like heart thing that's happening where I'm like
yeah.
drawn to and we can't. So I'm like, okay, that's weird. Let me just sit down and like okay.
Yeah, and it's that emotional drain, and I think I did go through a very dark period, and that was because our male kitty cat, we have a brother and a sister, our male kitty cat
Mm,
got cancer.
mm,
And so that was, and it happened really fast. So there was, so I think for myself personally, I had, a job change in December, and then I had a job change in February, and then I had a, COVID-19, and then I had my kitty cat, you
mm,
know,
that's a lot.
pass away.
Yeah.
We just loved them to bits. I still have a sister, thankfully.
Mm,
And it's been a few weeks now, and we're okay with it. We had to do what we had to do because my kitty cat was not in a good way. But, we've come out on the other side of all that, and I just think how lucky we are. I look around at my garden, the spring has come. You throw those seeds in the dirt, Amanda, and you could just, they do this thing, right? I do
ah,
the same thing. I've taken some organic gardening courses, and we live we live our lives in a way that um, I'm not obsessed over it, but I like to have my organic things. I feel good about what we're doing here. We make
mm,
room for the deer and the bees and I'm all worried because the predatory wasps are, that they make
mm,
their nests so they can help out in the garden and get excited when I see ladybugs and, so
mhm.
I'm a little bit different. I don't mind the spiders, although as long as they stay off of me, I'm good with
Good.
that. But
Yeah.
all of that stuff has given me hope, right? It has really given me that focus because when I feel like I'm not, another Groundhog Day, I can come down to my garden and I can dig things, and it really is distracting, and it really is distracting in a good way. I think that connection with what's around us and maybe not being so, I can tend to be a little bit self, I analyze, that wake up at that 3 o'clock in the morning because now you're thinking, oh my goodness, we had people over, now I'm going to have
Mhm,
COVID-19, or, there's these panic attacks and COVID dreams, and talk to a lot of
mhm,
different people that are having that sort of thing. But it's gradually going away, that I'm almost wondering, okay, so what's going to happen to us on the other side, that readjustment, to go
mhm,
back to that. People are afraid, I think, and rightfully so. But yet at the
mhm,
same time, we can't stop ever, right? You put on your mask and out the door you go. And that's
mhm.
good,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I think about that too. I wonder, um, like I have a business sense about me, and I think about how people are going to be going back in the office and how businesses are going to, and like this is just an estimation. Don't quote me on any of this, but
Okay.
businesses might struggle because their staff don't want to be there anymore. Like they just and so people will be making requests like, how can I work from home, or how can I work from home 3 days out of the week or 2 days out of the week or something, right? And I
Yeah.
anticipate there'll be more of that, and then businesses are going to have to be putting in like boundaries and sanctions around all this because now this has taught people what they're capable of, right? And I have a couple questions, but it's going to take us in two different directions. So the one question I have about work is are you, I'll ask both of them and then we can just kind of figure out how to do this. But with
Okay.
work is what was it like for you to learn how to work from home? And then the other direction is that dark period you talked about. And I'm interested to know just like what motivated you out of that, because a lot of times when we fall into a dark place, it can be very easy to fall
Yeah.
deeper
Yeah.
and very easy to stay there, right? So that's going to take us in two different directions, and you can answer whatever one you want first.
I'll just answer the working from home thing. I had a health thing happened to me last year in January, February. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was actually off work altogether, which was difficult. It's kind of been, things pile up. They say your stress is, if you have this many things happen to you in a year, that you have, X amount of, your stress levels and stuff. And so, yeah, it's been a bit of an odd year. But working from home, I wanted to work from home because my thing was a pain thing, and not that I was
Mm-hmm.
taking opioids or anything, but motion made it difficult to walk. So
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to work from home, and could only do so much. That was sort of not, didn't really fit that well with my role. Here we are a year later, and everybody's working from home,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of hard. But I adapted well. I think I just casually, I would sit at the kitchen table. I have my comfy IKEA chairs and all of that. And I did mention about my husband putting Wi-Fi down here, so we can spend a lunchtime down here and not be disconnected, which I like and I don't like, because I like to
Mm-hmm.
be down here and be disconnected. The second part of your question about the dark place, I I think the dark place can come upon you in the middle of the night when you're tired and you're afraid and you are
Mm-hmm.
thinking, the worst is going to happen, and it kind of sets you off. I mean, um, it does for me. It will make me feel not, I just can't, don't play me any music, don't sing me any songs, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make me feel any better. I think that I, okay, I'll backpedal for a second here. Have you ever seen the cartoon Rose's Rose?
No, I haven't. But
No,
now
okay.
I'll look it up for sure. Now you've made
Yeah,
reference to it.
Rose's Rose, and she was a typical mom, with the big glasses, the cartoon, the cartoon strip.
Mm-hmm.
And she had an alter ego, and it was her, I think the character's name, sorry, I haven't seen it in a while, but she would turn into this motorcycle mama, with the cool boots and the hat,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it just absolutely, gorgeous, right?
We have
And
this dark side almost, right?
yeah,
Like we have this
it's her.
poised mom, and then we have on the other side we have this
Yep,
I want
she's
to say like badass chick.
yep,
You
she's
know?
totally, she's like that.
Yeah.
So, but there was one of her comic strips that really stuck with me, and it was the mom sitting in the pit of despair, and she was
Mm-hmm.
sitting down at the bottom, and whatever it was that had her go there, it wasn't clear or anything. You might be able to find it. I've looked for it for quite some time, so if you do, you have to send it to me. But she was at the bottom of this pit of despair, and she just sort of, all of a sudden she lit up. She put on her alter ego. She put on her motorcycle boots. She put on her, her hat, and was
Mm-hmm.
riding her, I don't know if it's a Harley. She was riding her Harley all the way up the pit of despair, right? And she kept going until she got to the top. And I think of that often when I feel that way, and I think, we need to stop and think about, like, why am I here, right? Do I actually have a
Mm-hmm.
reason to be here? Is there something in my life that I either can change, need to know something about, something I need to address, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I'm avoiding, and somehow this is happening, or am I having a hormonal day? Because that happens to us women too. So I think of her. I think of Rose coming out of the pit of despair, putting on her big girl panties, I guess, and riding
Mm-hmm.
that, getting on the motorcycle and just saying, I can't stay here. This is not a good place for me. Um, does it mean it doesn't happen? No, it happens, but I liked her. She inspired me. And another movie, when I start to feel like that really inspires me, is Fried Green Tomatoes,
Oh yes.
because it
Mm-hmm.
talks to me about women and our courage, and we do have courage, and we
Mm-hmm.
can gather that at times to make ourselves get out of the pit,
Mm-hmm.
stop and think about the good things, and that's not always easy. I know if someone's in a clinical depression, that's really tough. But if you're just feeling low and blue, go outside, plant a plant, go to the store that gives you a good feeling, right? I love dots, just saying, right? I love, I love going to the garden center. Actually, during this COVID part, I went to our local organic farm, and they had, social distancing. Usually it's a big, got to get there early because people are going to buy up all the plants. And it was these rows of people, and there was hardly any people. And I actually started to cry because it made
So
me realize.
Marion, can you pause for a sec? We
Yep.
froze there for about just under 10 seconds, I think.
Oh, okay.
So you said I love dots and I love going to the garden center, and then it was gone. So if you can back up a little bit. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. You're welcome. So I just love to go and do something. Oh, sorry. I lost my train of thought there. I went to ALM Farms, which is close by where I live, and they're an organic place, and they have this big plant sale every year. And so you'd go there and people would drive up and you'd have a hard time finding the parking spot. But during COVID, I went there and there was like these tables and all these really young people that work out and help out on the farm. And there was maybe like 4 people there. And I literally started to break down to cry because I realized what an impact and how I felt in that moment was life was never going to be the same again. And I found that difficult. And in the same time, then I went up and bought my plants and my seeds, and I brought them home, and I gave them a new home. I made them happy. And it's all about perspective. I think we have to embrace how we feel in that moment and then move on from there. Because we just do. We need to. And I think by helping other people or having a Zoom meeting with your friends or which is what we've been doing. I have another Zoom meeting after this with a girlfriend that I don't get to see very often because she lives in another place. And just remember to tell your friends you love them, right? And, keep your fingers crossed. My oldest sister passed away in November, and she was living in a nursing home in another province. And she wasn't doing well and all that, but I was sort of grateful that that she didn't have to go through that. And you have strange feelings like that. I miss her very much, but I can't imagine what other people have gone through. So I try not to watch too much news either, because otherwise that starts to make me feel like that again. But just put on my biker gear.
Well, I was going to say, well, actually a couple things. I was out and about today. I like to grab, some food with my partner for lunch or whatever and sit by the water. And
nice.
And so we were going to do that, and then had to do a few little errands and things. And I watched a guy walk through the drive-through of a bank, because the line to get into the bank was so long. There was probably 15 or plus people in the line. Yeah. And that's the same, like last week I waited maybe 45 minutes to go into the post office to ask a question, like and it's just it's this is the new way of living, right? And we have to wait now. And so this guy had it, and there was only 4 cars in the line, so he stood in the line of cars to go to the bank machine. And it was smart, because quite frankly there was still 15 people in line when he was finished. So that's just my how I relate to you in terms of, when you went to the center and there's 4 people there and you're like, wow, this is so different. It's just like, it looks like a ghost town almost. And
you worry for these small businesses. Yeah, and you worry for these small businesses that are doing this. I mean, they've been doing it for a long time, and so you have people that are, struggling to, make it. I mean, I eat organically most of the time, not if it's ridiculously priced. There's some things I don't, but I'm not a vegetarian. I am a carnivore, not too much, hopefully, but I like to find ethically raised meat, right? So that's something that I do as well. And there's a farmer. I go all the way to the interior, which to find that particular thing. And so I want to live my values. I want to embrace them. But you know what? It's so easy not to do that when you're at home all the time. I mean, how many people have you talked to that don't get out of pajamas, or, what they
Oh yeah.
wouldn't normally
Some
do?
days I'm that person.
Me too. True
Right?
confession time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
totally. Right. And just taking care of yourself. Like,
Hmm.
at first it was kind of like, oh, do I have to do that? Did I brush my teeth this morning? The whole routine went out the window.
Hmm.
Everything went out the window. So it was that, I found that part hard. Did you hear that from other people too?
I have, yeah, and I've experienced that myself too. Like in the past, when I had an office to go to, I would be at the office just after 8 o'clock ish, right?
Yeah.
And I would be, doing my thing by 8:30 for sure with the coffee I got at the coffee shop on my way to the office. And and by noon I had done so much, been so productive. And now it's like I get up around 8 o'clock, and then I know,
Yep.
I'll have breakfast and I'll have a shower. And by the time I actually get to my desk, it's like 11. I'm
Oh
like,
no.
oh, and at the end of the day, I'm like, wow, like I did not get the things done I need to get done today. And then I'm complaining, so yeah, it goes out the window.
Well, you
And
work for yourself, right? So
I do. Hmm.
yeah, and so that makes it a little more interesting. I'm a little more regimented because I have meetings and I
You
have
have to be
my
accountable
time
to your
accountability.
employer.
Yeah, so it's a little
Yeah.
different, but
Yeah, but that being said, yeah, it's really, I've noticed with other people I've talked to, it's easy to stay up later and sleep in, or stay up later and then have to wake up at a certain time and be
yeah,
exhausted. And it's yeah, when we're in this routine and we have to be at the office Monday to
yeah,
Friday, and we get used to that when we don't have to do that anymore. It's kind of like kids who finish school and they're on summer break now. I don't actually, I mean, summer break started what seems like a while back for
yeah,
kids, but that's a whole nother conversation, I think. But when kids don't have that routine anymore, like the whole situation changes. And I feel like that. And I know that a lot of people I know and I've spoken to feel like that,
yeah.
that their
And
routines, and you have to be way more disciplined. And just because I said the piece about the kids, it's been tough for kids, for teenagers, and people who have been home, and the parents who have to homeschool them, and the kids trying to stay focused and having to do everything digitally. Like, it's hard enough for adults to go through and manage this change. And then you have little ones, at any age, and they're like, wow, like,
yeah.
I don't know how to do this. I just want to go and play. And I sit in front of this computer. Like, that's hard
Well,
for youth
and you're
and
telling me I
kids.
can't meet my friends, or you're telling me that
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't
We think it's hard
go
for
get a
us.
burger? Yeah. Well, I feel really, I mean, to all you parents out there who are at home homeschooling, and and you're not sure what's going to happen. I mean, my goodness, I mean, we've just never done that before. I always thought the teachers were really brave. Thanks for taking care of my kids all day.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, yeah, I think it's great. So let me go off to work, and
Mhm.
yeah. And I fear for the teachers too, because a lot of them, they're not that young anymore either. But we're doing good in BC. I'm very proud of us.
I'm hearing
Every
that.
time I look at every time I look at the statistics and that, I think, yay, BC, go.
Mhm.
We're not doing it perfectly. I know that because you go to a store and you've got people walking right behind you, right? There is no, I
Yep.
guess if they figure if they're looking at the back of your head, there's no social distancing under those circumstances, right? So,
True.
yeah, so it's a little bit strange. So you sort of hold your breath and, kind of do whatever, try not to do that. I have a friend there. I don't know if you saw him fly up and
I
go
did,
around.
yeah.
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 So, yeah, I miss being able to go to a store and walk in the door and not have to wait in a lineup. I've missed my annual checkup. I've missed my dentist
Mhm.
appointments. I miss my hair's getting a little long, cutting
Mhm.
my own bangs,
Mhm.
doing the waiting. And then, now that it's opening up, I have to wait another month yet because, of course, everybody got in there before me. But
Yep.
I just, I just still do almost the same thing that we did before, which is by the time Friday night would come around and we come home, usually we didn't go out for the weekend. I do my shopping on the way home on Fridays, and now it's an adventure to go out. Yay, go to Costco.
Mm-hmm.
Do something, stand in the lineup. But people are quiet too. I think that's kind of disturbing when you're in a lineup. Like, there would have been a time where people were sort of chattering or, elevator talk.
Since
Yeah.
just because you've mentioned that, I noticed that also when
Yeah.
I'm standing in line, nobody's saying anything. Like the post office line last week, everybody was silent. And
Yeah.
it's, even the people who had friends standing beside them, they weren't talking to each other either. And I was like, wow. But before, like when I stand in lines at like a movie theater or whatever, like everybody's talking. And I have not to date, have not stood in a line to go into a store where people have been casually chatting.
Yeah.
That's
I know.
fascinating. I didn't realize that until right now.
It's just so quiet. And then you're sort of
Yeah.
looking around. And this lady said this to me the other day. She goes, really, I'm smiling under this mask. And I gave her a big smile back. And I said, me too. And, I think we need to start to reconnect in those ways. Like, I fear for children who, I can't let anybody hug me or even get close to me. Can you imagine? Like, what if this goes on for a long time, like a 2-year-old who's never had a stranger touch them other than their parents?
Yeah.
What does that do? I'm just not sure. I think we just got to hang in there, and we will get through this. They did through the flu pandemic, and it's just something we've never seen. I was feeling pretty lucky in my lifetime that I didn't have to go to war. I didn't have to send my children to war. That we'd had no major earthquakes or fires or, so you do start to feel fortunate, but you start to accept that as the norm, which isn't, obviously our bubbles have burst a little bit, that we're not invincible. So.
Which I think is although difficult, it's really positive in teaching us not to take for granted the things that we have.
Yeah, I totally.
Right, because the normal can be so like you can wake up in the morning and expect that. And I think sometimes when we're, oftentimes when we're challenged and things are painful, that's where we grow the most. And if things are always normal and then we're like, we just expect those things, and some people can become arrogant about that or entitled about that. Like, well, I deserve this. Like, how dare the universe do this to me, or whatever it is. It's like, well, there's a lot of learning that can be had here. And look at what you haven't had to go through. Look at all the things that as Canadians anyway, that we've been privileged to not have to experience. Right. And so it's such an eye opener. But it's about attitude, and it's about how we look at that. Like we can look at this and say, I'm so hard done by. And I agree that a lot of people are very, very hard done by. And this has been catastrophic for some people, families and businesses. But we can have fallen hard times, and we can modify our viewpoint of it. If we think about, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but the book called A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor. Yeah. And he changed his perspective while he was imprisoned. And it's incredible. It's an old book, and I can't remember exactly what year it was published, but it's a great read, and it's about finding meaning in the darkness. I would recommend it to anybody who is struggling finding meaning for themselves in all of this.
Yeah, I would love to read that. That's
it's actually free. It's free on Audible if you're into audiobooks. It's free, and then it's like $10 on Kindle, and then there's hard copies you can buy for various prices. But it's a great read.
Well, I love audiobooks, and I'd really be interested in reading that, because I read another one that my friend had told me about, and it's called The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. And it's about, do you know what HeLa cells are?
No. I think I've heard of it, but no.
Okay, well, it's cells that they use in the laboratory that never die. And the woman that they came from, her name was Henrietta Lacks, and it was a very, very good book. Again, it's one of those things of, I don't know, courage. I guess I like to read about women of courage. There's a lot of
Mm,
them out there, and I think that if I could have a magic power, it would be to have courage all the time and to make sure that, I think about the things my mother went through, war, losing 3 babies.
mhm.
This She was born just after the First World War and going through the Depression, and I used to call her a tough old bird. It was kind of funny because she was a tough old bird, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I didn't understand that until I got older, and then I understood,
Mhm.
you know, uh, how much courage she had and how much they went through. And I wish she was here now so I could tell her, that I
Mhm.
understand in a different way now than I did when I was young. So lots of stories. There's lots of stories there, Amanda. I could go off on a whole tangent on that one, but you know, packing up your
Well,
stuff and
yeah.
getting kicked out of
I
your home.
I love what you're, the things that you are talking about, and I'm really taking from this idea of focusing on what we do have available to us,
Hmm.
and using that the best we can, and growing in that. And it might not be ideal. In fact, I would say that life normally isn't ideal for like, things happen. There's,
Yeah,
my experience of life is when I overcome one issue, there's a curveball that's on its way. And I'm just like, okay, like, what's next?
they come in threes, Amanda. If you actually count them, they come in threes because it's sometimes I hold in my breath because it seems that the
Mm,
world is just built that way, and you wonder where these sayings
mhm,
come from sometimes, but definitely things happen in threes. It's kind of
mm,
scary to witness that. I don't know the cosmic like universe kind of thing, right? My cosmic universe is watching things grow out of the dirt. Although there are some aspects to that that you can get really going on, when to plant them by the moon and different things, which I
mhm.
haven't quite figured that out. But I just think that uh, there is a cosmic uh, connection out there. We just need to stop and look at it.
And then when you said that, I was like, okay, what are the three things? Like, right now,
Yep,
today, this moment, what are the three things? And there are three. Yeah,
yep.
there's for sure three
Three.
major
Okay.
hard things that I'm dealing with right now, today.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't particularly noticed that it's three every time, but what I do notice, and this could be just a different way of describing this, is that when it rains it pours. Right? And
Yes.
when there's three things, that's pouring to me, three significantly hard things to deal with. And if there was one more, I don't know how I would handle it. Right? And so, the start and finish of these things might overlap a little bit. But yeah,
Exactly.
and it's a combination of business challenges and personal challenges and financial challenges. And it's like testing me in all these angles. And what I think the greatest lesson that I learned from having to face whatever's coming is that the emotions cannot actually hurt you. It's like, okay, these things are overwhelming and they're washing over me, and I'm going to cry about it. I'm going to yell. I'm going to, cope in whatever way is healthiest for me. That's where I try and go to. And we cope in various ways, but I try to pick healthy things to cope with, or as healthy as I can, but just allowing the feelings to wash over, they do dissipate. And this is, oftentimes what I see is like people will feel something and in varying intensities, and then they'll go and they'll become intoxicated to not have to feel that. And that's just one example of how we run away from our feelings, right? And so what I've learned, even like has been reiterated in the last few days, is that just let the feelings be there and talk about it. And like this morning, I woke up and I was having a hard morning, and I was just in a tough mood, and I had to walk through what was called the gratitude alphabet. So I was so mad this morning. Like I didn't want to talk to anybody, and that's tied to one of the things that's really challenging for me right now. And so my partner helped me with this, because I said, can you help me, because I'm not doing well this morning. And she said, well, what, let's do it. She's a therapist also. Let's do the gratitude alphabet. And so we started at A, and then she said something that started with A that she was grateful for. And then I said something that started with A. And it's interesting, like when you're in a hard place or difficult mood, it's really tough to find things that we're grateful for.
Yes.
So we were driving, and this is around the same time I saw the guy walk through the drive-through. so, and so there was some comic relief in that. By the time we got to Z, it took us like half an hour probably to get through the whole alphabet, because in certain letters, like most of them, I sat there and I was like, I don't know what I'm grateful for that starts with D. like, and I'm grateful for drive-throughs. Like, there you go. And so as we did that, I noticed my mood lifted as we were going along. And so by noon today, I had kind of worked through that, and I was in a much better place at noon when I started seeing clients, and I'm in a much better place now than I was at noon. And so that hard place, in an extremely difficult situation for me that I'm dealing with, that has never happened to me before. And so you have the pandemic. Do what you can to help yourself out. Talk to people, put it out there.
Well, I think part of this is you start to become a little more introspective, because I've learned something about myself. I used to say, and I said this all the time, I'm okay with change. Change is, just point me wherever and I'm okay with change. I've discovered I'm really not all that good at it, because my response to it and being so many changes in such a short period of time. There's a change in December, change in January, a change.
Hey, Marion.
Yes.
Can you hear me? We had another 10-second freeze. Okay. So if you can just back up 10 seconds. Okay. The last thing I heard you say was introspective.
Okay. Say when.
Go ahead.
Okay. So yes, I think we become more introspective, and I also believe that in doing that, it's given us a chance to stop and look at ourselves, which we're not often willing to do. And how did I really respond to this? How did I really respond to COVID? How do I feel at the end of the day? What is it that's happening? That's a part of it. But I discovered that I've been lying to myself. I always said I was good with change. I'm not. I could have told you that and really actually believed it. But when I had my sister pass away, a change at work, and then another change at work, and then COVID, and then my kitty cat dying, I wasn't good with change. I thought, if at the end of this, life doesn't look the same or similar, that was hard for me to accept. I accept it now, but it was hard for me to accept, because it was one more change, and I found that difficult. But I had to deal with it. I'm okay. I'm on the other side. I'm sitting in my garden. The bees are going. Life is still continuing on, and that's, I think, what we got to grab a hold of, is that it's continuing. It's still going on. Look around you. Maybe you notice your bunny rabbits, or maybe you notice that the birds are nesting, or you put out a hummingbird feeder, or people are adopting cats and dogs. Like, you have somebody to love and to care for. Like, it's changed your life to the good. And maybe it's not all good and we don't like it, but it is what it is, and comes back to that being grateful. But I'm going to remember that gratitude alphabet. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was very helpful, and it took so long because I was so upset that I like couldn't think of things, and so I was like, help me out. Like, what? I almost went in my phone and said, like, what starts with A? What words start with A, so I could, right? But I was so like wrapped up in my emotions that I couldn't think outside of that. And it was super helpful to be like, okay, there's a world outside of what's happening here, and I need to take my brain space and think about that, and not pay attention to this particular situation, because it is what it is, and moving away from that and not allowing it to have any power over me. And so I've successfully achieved that as of right now anyway. And so, we'll see whatever else unfolds, and it'll be what it'll be, but instead of sitting in the angst or whatever emotion you're experiencing, something like that, when we're stuck, like, try it out. If it takes 10 minutes, if it takes half an hour, like whatever. But it's great. It's great. So the one thing, you know, as I'm mindful of time here, and we'll be running an emergency group because of the pandemic in about half an hour here. So
Sure.
so I can prepare for that. Before we wrap up, one question that's been sitting with me for a while now is I almost want to say, like, you talked about the cartoon and the woman who gets on the motorcycle and drives all the way to the top. Like, what's your motorcycle? Like, what is your alter ego? Like, what, you know, what do you plug into? I mean, you love gardening. You've talked a lot about that, but what is it for you?
Oh, that has changed immensely over time. In my 40s, it was the motorcycle, literally. All the things that I was afraid of doing, I had to learn to do them. I was in a phase of my life. I try to do the things that I'm afraid of, which
Mm-hmm.
is part of my personality. And I think I was stunted as a child. I'm just kidding about that. But I had my children young. And so while
Mm-hmm.
everybody else was out having a good time and doing their thing, I was, guess what? I was changing diapers. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think that sort of set me off into a lifetime of I try this or I try that. And now that I'm sort of at this phase of my life, I've found something that I really love. That if you'd have told me that 5 years ago, I'd have said, no way. No, you plant
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff, you got to do stuff with it. And, you know, now
Yeah.
I do fermenting foods and, you know, just there's so much to do and learn, right? You know, you buy a dehydrator and you put more money into the garden. It's really a sinkhole for money, but it's, I think that's it. And I have a very um, happy relationship, a very great one. And so that helps me too, because he's always there for me. So I have somebody that's there to listen to me. Um, and when I'm having those moods, I don't have to hide it. I just kind of
Mm-hmm.
go with it. And then by the next morning, it's gone. I just have to not wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and lay there and think about all the things that could go wrong.
Right. Yeah, because that can be a sinkhole too.
Yes. And for no
Right?
reason, right? Just because
Yeah.
it's 3 o'clock. And honestly, I think it's menopausal, to be honest. I think it's just one of
Mm.
those things that you go through hormonally and you just wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning. If you ask all your menopausal patients, does this happen? I'd
Yeah.
like to hear your consensus because I bet you it's a big percentage of people.
Right.
Don't know why.
Yeah, challenging. I mean, I don't know anything about menopause personally, but I do know what it's like month by month, watching the mood change. And then I'll just be sitting there and I'll just start, like, I'll feel upset and I'll start crying, and it's about something really ridiculous. You know, I don't mean to be judgmental, but something like a color of something, like, I get so upset. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, like, imagine myself looking in a mirror and going, like, why are you so imagine what menopause is like as your body is changing,
Yeah,
everything around again, right?
yeah.
And
The good
imagine
news
I
is
won't have a good time doing that.
the good news is it all mellows out in the end and it's all good, right? You know, you find
Yeah,
your happy spot and yeah, oh yeah, it's
yeah,
all good. Yeah. Don't even worry
yeah.
about it. You know, when they
Oh,
I've learned as a parent of teenagers, don't buy every book that's out there, right? Find somebody
mhm.
that thinks like you do and get the
Yeah.
book and go with it. Because if you listen to everybody, you'll start to make yourself nuts.
Hmm.
You know, it will be too many things and too much input. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Do the best you can. Well,
yes.
as we wrap up here, Marion, I'm wondering if you could, in your own way, um, like, put a bow on the theme of the things you've said about how people can be supporting themselves if they're having trouble.
I would say that the best thing to do is try and find something that grounds you, whatever that is. Riding a bike, going for a walk,
Mhm.
gardening, plant a flower, find something that grounds you into and takes away all the other stuff, right? That where you can actually, I guess meditation would work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, any of those things that make you go outside of what you're feeling in the moment, but embrace what you're feeling. I couldn't have said it better than what you did, but embrace how you're feeling. It's okay to feel sad. What's not okay is to stay in sad, right? And finding that thing that you can watch a hummingbird and be amazed by it. I'm amazed by all of it. So it brings me a lot of joy.
I'm amazed by watching the flowers bloom. And I like yesterday there was this particular plant, there was no flower. And today there's this big, like I'm talking like a big flower. And I'm like, wow, like that happened overnight. That's really neat. I'm amazed by these things. And like some people, they find they think they find value in staying in their sadness. And like that, you know, that's okay if that's what you think you need to do, but it's not helpful for your long-term healing or development into, you know, a higher sense of self. So it's like, do what you need to do, but recognize you don't have to stay there. You have a choice in one capacity or another to do something different, even if it's like this big.
Yeah,
right?
it doesn't have to be big.
Yeah, you can do that. So I love the guidance there, and I agree completely. Just embrace what is happening and do your best with it. And what we find is that we will open up into opportunities that we didn't even know that we would enjoy,
yeah.
and B, opportunities that then compound into other opportunities that we had no idea that we would ever have the chance of being part of. That makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
no,
Doors
because you
upon
don't know
doors.
what you love until you try it. And that's what I was
Yeah.
trying to say with all those different things that I've tried in my life. And I was always interested in health, but now I have this gardening hobby that, you know, it's amazing. It's fascinating. Expensive, but fascinating. Pots work too, everybody.
Yeah. Well, I love it. And I greatly appreciated this conversation, and just that I love the connection, and that, you know, you and I don't know each other, and I appreciate that now we know a little bit about each other, and that you never know in the future there might be a connection that's made again, you know, as per a mutual connection, or maybe we stay in touch or whatever may have you. And so yeah, I hope that those of you who have watched the video that you've gained something positive from it. If you do have questions for Marion, you can certainly email me and I can ask her, and if that's okay with you.
That sounds great. I have no issue with that whatsoever. Yeah, if anybody has any.
Because we definitely, sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Because if people relate to you, which we do find with these videos, people will relate, and some people will reach out, and they want to ask, like, how did you do this, or, you know, and they want to continue the conversation with you. I can invite you into that. And if not, that's like, you know, if people don't have questions or whatever, that's okay. But that's why we do these videos, is just to show you that we're
exactly. I've lost you. Oh, there.
Oh, we're back. Yeah, I'm not sure. I called Shaw and it was like, reset the modem, and there was going to be no problem. Now I'm going to call them again and say, you know what, like we have super fast internet. Change the modem, please, because it should not be an issue anymore. We've been troubleshooting for like a month now, and it's like, come on, guys, come on.
Exactly. Okay. Yes, they're not very well on it, but I'll let you go. You have your next thing going on.
We have our group. So thank you very much. And if send me a text if you want me to tag you in the video once it's posted. It'll be posted, I imagine, in the next couple of days.
Okay.
If you want to be posted on if you want me to tell you when it's posted, or you want to be tagged in it on Facebook, just send me a text and let me know that, and then we can keep in touch if you want or not. It's entirely up to you.
Like I said, you look it over, and if it resonates,
oh, it's
or
great.
whatever.
It's great, and
okay.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to you.
Thank you.